days are cooler, nights are warmer, and I put the blame on you. Time moves slow, but my heart beats faster. When these eyes are looking right at you, you give me something to believe in, just what I needed. You're the closest.
But now we got this obstruction. Now we got the voter suppression. Now we got the gerrymandering, and we don't have Brett Rathenberger or whatever his name is from Georgia. We don't have people with integrity. We have people who are in the pockets of MAGA. And I would venture to say it's not Republicans, it's MAGA. Something more than a political party is going on here. Would you say that? This is not politics. Thank you. Okay, I just needed to be said by somebody that knows more than I do about this.
When you looked at the Republican convention and you saw them all like putting the maxi pad on their ears to be like that, that's not normal behavior. It's weird, right? That is weird cult stuff that's going on, right? Weird. So yeah, look, as with 2020, I will say the same thing now that I said in 2020. If it is close, we're going to lose. If it is close, they will steal it. If it comes down to one state, if it comes down to a few thousand votes in one or two states, we will lose. They will take it. Believe it. Count on it. The only protection against the obstruction that the Republicans are clearly planning to do, again, it's important to say, again, I'm not theorizing about this. I'm remembering history about this. If we look at the obstruction that the Republicans are intending to do again, if it is close, they will take it. The only way to protect ourselves is to make it not close. So, one of the challenges that Harris has is that she can't win a 1-point election, right? She can't win she can't have a one state margin. She needs a multiple state margin. She needs to be in a position where to steal it from her, they have to steal multiple states. If it just comes down to Arizona or it just comes down to Georgia, we're toast. But if it comes down to Arizona and Georgia and North Carolina and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, they have to steal all 5 of those states, then I don't think they can pull it off. And so it's really just a numbers game. Harris has to win by look, she's already going to win the popular vote. Absolutely nobody thinks that for the 3rd time in a row, Trump will do anything other than lose the popular vote once again. He has been already one of the least popular presidents in American history. He is a minoritarian candidate, using minoritarian tactics to impose his rule and his will. So we already know she's going to win the popular vote. But if she doesn't have enough of a margin in the Electoral College, if it's close enough that they only have to flip one state through legal shenanigans, they will, in fact, take it from us. So that puts voters on blast in a number of states. It's not enough to say like, oh, well, we're probably going to win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, so we're all good. If it's just that, they'll take Pennsylvania. They'll take Wisconsin. So you have to win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and Arizona, and Georgia, and North Carolina, and Nevada. And if you could flip, an Ohio or a Florida, see, that's the thing. If you could actually flip one of those hard red states, on those former purple states, that would put the nail in the coffin of MAGA. That would make Republicans see that, like, wow, going hard right fascism isn't the way to go. If they lost Ohio or Florida, I don't think it's going to happen. But you need enough of a margin.
It flipped the other way, and it wasn't supposed to happen. So I'm a shout out. We have a large Florida contingent. We have a large Florida listening group. Shout out to Florida. I want to be able to visit Florida again. I want to even maybe be able to live in Florida again. I love Florida. Floridians are beautiful. Y'all reclaim Florida. What was the name of the people with the little golf carts, the assisted living folk? Not assisted living.
Villages.
The villages. That's in Florida. The villagers came out, Elie Mystal, in their golf carts, shut down the whole village, all of the villages for Kamala Harris. I said, what is happening? I love that. Listen, Florida, if you got people, I know there's all of this suppression, but they're going to, I feel like the governor's painting himself into a box because he has a felon living in his state who he wants him to vote. talking about Donald Trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
This same governor, after the people went out and said, we want to restore voting rights to people who were formerly incarcerated, he then added a poll tax and suppressed those votes. It was a couple of million, something like that, which was the determining factor. If you remember, the Andrew Gillum race was very tight. Those returning citizens would have made the difference.
Could have flipped it.
Okay. So we have to be vigilant with voter registration. Check your voter rolls, because they're also kicking people off. 500,000 people just wiped off. And you know those contingent, those what do they call those ballots that you have to fill out?
Provisional ballots.
Provisional ballots. You know, they ain't really, I don't feel like they're counting them. So we need to be vigilant now to make sure, re-register if you have to, because
so one of the pieces of information I want to give to your listeners, if you are a listener of this show who only votes every 4 years, which is somewhat common, right? You show up for the presidential elections, you don't show up for the midterms. No matter how much Karen yells at you, you don't show up for the midterms. If you're one of those people who votes only every 4 years and you live in one of these red states like Ohio or Florida, there is a great chance you've been kicked off the rolls, because what those state laws have done is make it so anybody who doesn't show up for 2 or 3 consecutive elections gets automatically kicked off the rolls. But 2 or 3 consecutive elections is not once every 4 years. It's once every year. Right. So if you didn't show up to vote for your governor in 2021, and you didn't show up to vote for Congress in 2022, and you didn't show up to vote for, your state district attorney in 2023, you could be already kicked off, even though you voted in the last presidential election and every presidential election that you can remember. OK, so you just check your voting registration. It just Google, am I registered to vote? It will take you to where you have to go. You put into your address to a secure website on the Board of Elections. It will tell you whether or not you're registered. It will tell you what district you're registered in. Like, this is really simple stuff that you can do just to make sure that you haven't already been kicked off the rolls, because right now we're talking here on July 30th. There is still time in every state for you to re-register. But as we get past Labor Day, depending on your state, that time is going to get truncated very significantly. So now, over the summer, while you're out with your friends, while you're at the barbecue, while you're at the pool, this is a good time to Google on your phone, am I registered to vote? And and then while you're there, Google your friends. Just make sure everybody that you know is registered to vote, because that's all I'm going to tell you, because I don't need to tell you who to vote for. You don't have to listen. I'm a random guy on the internet. You're not going to listen to me who to vote for. Vote your conscience. Vote who you think should be president. Just don't vote for the couch, right? Because I am not worried. Well,
is this an anti-JD Vance statement?
No, I wasn't trying to.
What are you doing?
I wasn't trying to go to couches or dolphins or whatever he's into these days. No, I am not worried about Harris v. Trump so much as I'm worried about Harris v. the couch. Harris v. people staying at home. Because if people go to the polls, Harris will win. If people stay home, Trump will win. I am not worried about black people voting for Donald Trump. Donald Trump's going to get 12 to 15% of the black vote. Republicans always get 12 to 15% of the black vote. People forget there were 10% of black people who voted for Mitt Romney, right? There are 10% of black people who voted for George W. Bush. You go back, you could find at least 8% of black people voted for John C. Calhoun, probably, and Jefferson Davis, right? Like they're always those people out there who are going to vote for the conservative candidate. I ain't worried about them. I ain't trying to convince them. I don't need them. I don't need Ice Cube to get on I don't care, right? Go do what you're going to do. If most black and brown people show up to vote, just show up, we'll be fine. Things will be absolutely fine. Vote your conscience. Tell your friends to vote your conscience, but help. And if you're already kind of paying enough attention to be listening to the show, then you have to be the beacon of light and information in your community and with your friends, because you, just by nature of listening to the show, are already more informed than a lot of people in your community and your friends. You got to be the beacon of light for them. I try to. One of the problems with the 50 state voting rules is that I don't know the exact voter registration guidelines in Texas or Florida. I live in New York. I know them for New York. And anybody who I know from New York can come to me at any time and ask, well, how do I register to vote? And I can give them all the information necessary, right? And you can do that in your state. You can do that in your community. Be the beacon of light and information, and then trust people to govern themselves accordingly.
Listen, I love that message. And I'm going to add, let's stop with just the black and the brown, because the vast majority of people who don't have melanin in this country are not MAGA folk. They're not hateful. They're not racist. They may have privilege. They may live in homogenized, maybe very insulated areas, and maybe they don't have to even prove whether or not they're racist. But I don't think they're bad people that are going to show up to a rally and put a Kotex on their ear. I think there's a lot of people who are checked out, to your point, a lot of people who are exhausted. And you're right. 100 million people sat home the last election. It was so depressing. And it was feeling like that now. It doesn't feel like that right now. And that's, encouraging. But you're right. I don't care, black, brown, anybody who is listening right now, check your registration. We're going to tweet it out. I just dropped it in Nubia as well. I think you should go to vote.gov, because that's, and you can check your registration. You can re-register. There's no penalty for re-registering, actually. And I think you should, just to make sure, But yeah, I think that apathy is what we're really fighting. It's not even apathy. I feel like it's more despair. It's more this, what is my vote going to do? Things are the way they've always been. The government's all just going to do what they want. There's this kind of just dejected, it's not apathy as much as it is a strong sense that government just doesn't help. I walk over people who are unhoused. Folk are hungry. Look at the cost of things. Nothing changes. Air quality, blah, blah, blah. No one's there for us. Why should I vote? That's what we're up against.
My days are cooler. Nights are warmer, and I put the blame on you. Time moves slow, but my heart beats faster. When these eyes are looking right at you, you give me something to believe in, just what I needed. You're the closest.